The 10,079th meeting of the Security Council is called to order.
Russia has asked for the floor.
The provisional agenda for this meeting is non-proliferation. The agenda is adopted. The representative of the Russian Federation has asked for the floor. I give them the floor.
Mr. President, we have to take the floor for a point of order due to attempts by some delegations to push the Security Council into committing a gross violation of its decisions and procedures. Western colleagues are trying to pass today's meeting off as a regular biannual discussion under the non-proliferation agenda item to consider the implementation of Security Council Resolution 2231 and to discuss the relevant report of the UN Secretary General. The Russian Federation categorically rejects such approaches. For those who are particularly forgetful, I'd like to remind you that all provisions of 2231 have ceased to be in effect since the 18th of October 2025, around the 10th anniversary of the day of the adoption of the JCPOA. On that day, the Security Council stopped its consideration of the Iranian nuclear program, and the non-proliferation agenda item was taken off the list of matters covered by the Security Council. These consensus-based decisions were enshrined in the text of 2231. References to procedures for removing items from the agenda of the Council that are enshrined in Presidential Note 507 are not relevant here. Along with the expiration of the validity of 2231, logically, the Presidential Note S 2016-44 has also lost its relevance, in compliance with which the UN Secretary General every 6 months prepares a report on its implementation and the Security Council discusses it. Neither the Secretariat nor the UN Security Council have relevant mandates anymore, therefore. The unfelicitous attempts by Western members of the Security Council to create the impression that today's meeting is routine clearly demonstrates the fact that the current president have not managed to ensure the inclusion of this in the Security Council's programme of work for December 2025. Dear colleagues, the convening by the UK and France and its support team in the Security Council, the convening of this meeting, has nothing to do with the mandated reporting cycle of the Council. It is nothing more than a blatant attempt to convince the international community that the Euro Troika has harnessed a mechanism to restore the anti-Iranian resolutions of the Security Council. The so-called swap-back mechanism and Resolution 2231 apparently still remains in force. With their desire to push forward their agenda, they are prepared to deepen the divide in the Security Council, not only politically, but also on legal and procedural matters too. In this context, it is disappointing that our Slovenian colleagues were not able impartially to uphold their presidential obligations and prevent the holding of a non-existent meeting in terms of the Security Council's agenda. Their preparedness to act at the behest of the initiator of today's discussion is a flagrant violation of the decisions that the Security Council has previously taken upon itself and undermines its authority. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for his comments. The representative of China has asked for the floor. I give them the floor.
President.
The floor to the representative of China.
President, the JCPOA was once an important product of multilateral diplomacy endorsed by Security Council resolution. As a model for dispute resolution through dialogue and consultation, balancing the objectives of nuclear non-proliferation and peaceful use, it has played a key role in maintaining peace and stability in the Middle East. However, in 2018, the U.S. unilaterally withdrew from the agreement, imposed unilateral sanctions on Iran, exerted maximum pressure, and this June, along with Israel, brazenly attacked Iranian nuclear facilities under IAEA safeguards and monitoring, pushing the Iranian nuclear issue into a deep crisis. After the U.S. withdrawal, the E3 also imposed unilateral sanctions on Iran, not fulfilling their obligations under the agreement or exhausting the dispute resolution mechanism, and triggering the snapback mechanism after the attack on Iranian nuclear facilities, resulting in repeated escalation of tensions and confrontations between parties. The current situation in Iran is not what any party wishes to see. If allowed to fester, it will further undermine the authority and effectiveness of the international non-proliferation regime and jeopardize peace and stability in the Middle East. China calls on all parties concerned to act with a greater sense of urgency, demonstrate responsibility, restart the negotiation process as soon as possible, strive to reach consensus and achieve results. I would like to make the following points. First, a political solution is the only way out. This issue cannot be resolved through force or confrontation. All parties should remain calm and exercise restraint, properly manage differences through diplomacy and dialogue, and avoid a return to the vicious cycle of sanctions, pressure, and escalation. The U.S. should fully fulfill its responsibilities, demonstrate political sincerity, clearly commit not to use force against Iran, and take the initiative to resume negotiations with Iran. The E3 should refrain from microphone diplomacy, play a positive role in easing tensions and bridging differences, and honor their commitment to a diplomatic solution. Second, upholding fairness and justice is a basic principle. Despite unfair treatment, Iran has repeatedly reaffirmed the peaceful nature of its nuclear program, emphasized that it had no intention of developing nuclear weapons, and has actively engaged with all parties to seek solutions. The experience of the JCPOA proves that the Iranian nuclear issue can be properly resolved through comprehensive and strict safeguards and monitoring. China calls on the countries concerned to objectively view the difficulties Iran faces in restoring safeguards and verification, and to value Iran's good faith and positive efforts, rather than making one-sided accusations, exerting pressure, and causing disruptions. Third, dialogue on an equal footing is the fundamental way forward. Any solution must fully respect Iran's legitimate rights as a state party to the NPT, a nuclear weapon state, and ensure the peaceful nature of its nuclear program. Parties concerned should respect each other's legitimate security concerns, ease tensions and build mutual trust through dialogue and an equal footing, and find an early solution that meets the expectations of the international community. A certain country should refrain from using the Iranian nuclear talks to advance its geopolitical agenda or linking the Iranian nuclear issue with other issues, as it will only disrupt the negotiation process and undermine diplomatic efforts. Fourth, a favorable atmosphere is essential. Recently, regional countries have been actively promoting the resumption of talks. China supports all efforts to restart negotiations and believes this is also the position of the vast majority of Council members. The Council should play a constructive role to allow time and space for diplomatic efforts and create a positive atmosphere for restarting negotiations. Relevant countries should stop escalating sanctions and inciting confrontation and stop abusing the Council to impose unilateral punishment on Iran. President, as a permanent member of the Council and a party to the JCPOA, China has always played a constructive role on the Iranian nuclear issue, actively promoting peace through dialogue. For some time now, China has maintained close communication at various levels with all parties concerned and has repeatedly sent letters to the UN and the IAEA to clarify its position and call for the maintenance of the political and diplomatic process. Together with Russia, China has proposed a draft resolution on the technical rollover of Security Council Resolution 2231. China will continue to work all parties to promote the early resumption of negotiations, advance a political solution to the Iranian nuclear issue, uphold international nuclear non-proliferation regime, and promote peace and stability in the Middle East. I thank you, President.
I thank the representative of China for the statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Panama.
Gracias, señor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank Rosemary DiCarlo for her briefing on the report of the Secretary General. We welcome Izetta Sampson, the Chargé d'Affaires ad interim of the delegation of the European Union, and the representatives of the countries that are honoring us with their participation today. The 20th report of the Secretary-General on the implementation of Resolution 2231, 2015 of the Security Council provides us with a summary of recent events, which, in the context of growing geopolitical tensions surrounding developments in the
representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Thank you. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, Mr. President, at the outset, I wish to state clearly Iran's position regarding the convening of this meeting. We associate ourselves with the position of the Russian and Chinese colleagues and firmly object to the convening of this meeting. Security Council Resolution 2231 contains a clear, deliberate, and self-executing termination clause. This resolution expired on 18 October 2025. As of that date, it ceased to have any legal effect or operative mandate. Accordingly, the Security Council rules under the Resolution 2231 came to a definitive end. There is therefore no mandate for the Secretary General to submit any report, no mandate for the Council to hold discussions on it, and no legal basis whatsoever to convene a meeting under the agenda item non-proliferation in this context. Any attempt to convene such a meeting constitute a clear violation and abuse of the Council's procedure. Likewise, any claim of the continued operation or implementation of Resolution 2231, whether by invoking Note 44 of the President of the Council or by vague reference to so-called established practice, is legally unfounded and misleading, and amounts to a clear abuse of this Council authority and process. Mr. President, I wish to express Iran's appreciation to China and the Russian Federation for their principled position and their faithful commitment to the JCPOA throughout its implementation. We also thank Algeria, Pakistan, and other Council members who have taken principled and independent positions. What we are witnessing is not a legitimate disagreement over interpretation, but a calculated distortion of Resolution 2231. The deliberate dissemination of disinformation regarding Iran's peaceful nuclear program, and a cynical attempt to abuse this Council for their narrow political interest. Against this backdrop, I wish to make 4 points. First, the root cause of the current situation are clear and did not emerge overnight or in isolation. They lie in the unilateral withdrawal of the United States from the JCPOA in 2018, the sustained and deliberate non-compliance of the 3 European countries with their commitments, and the subsequent military aggression by the United States and the Israeli regime against Iran's peaceful safeguard nuclear facilities. The war of the aggression launched by the United States and Israel, including deliberate attacks on facilities under IAEA safeguard, constitute a blatant violation of Article 2 of the UN Charter and the peremptory norm prohibiting the use of force, and represents a direct assault on the international non-proliferation regime. The situation is further aggravated by the explicit and public admission of the President of the United States, a permanent member of the Security Council and the depositary of the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, what Washington led, directed, and coordinated this war of aggression. Any attempts to justify this unlawful act through a distorted interpretation of Article 51 of the Charter or by invoking a fabricated claim of imminent threat is legally unfounded, misleading, and constitute one of the most dangerous abuses of international law in recent history. Article 51 of the Charter permits self-defense only in response to an actual armed attack, not speculative or hypothetical threats. Equally disturbing is the silence, and in certain instances, the implicit endorsement of the 3 European countries in response to this act of aggression. They have no credibility whatsoever to invoke non-proliferation norms or to claim concerns for the integrity of the non-proliferation regime. Second, Iran has been a faithful and responsible party to the NPT since 1970. Iran has consistently rejected weapons of mass destruction on legal, moral, and doctrinal regard, a position reaffirmed constantly at the highest level. Despite unlawful sanction, sabotage, assassination of its nuclear scientists, and armed attack, Iran has never diverted its nuclear program to military purposes. Iran's program remains exclusively peaceful and subject to the most extensive verification regime applied to any non-nuclear weapon state. Yet the role has been deliberately reversed. The victim is treated as the perpetrator, Iran is punished, and those who attack IAEA safeguard nuclear facilities enjoy complete impunity. This blatant double standard gravely undermines the integrity, credibility, and authority of the global non-proliferation regime. Despite these circumstances and grave violations, Iran acts in good faith and continue to cooperate with IAEA. On 9 September in Cairo, Iran's foreign minister signed a memorandum of understanding with the IAEA Director General, an initiative welcomed by the agency and many states as a constructive first step. Additional proposals were later presented here in New York by Iran's foreign minister. All were ignored. France and the United Kingdom chose escalation over diplomacy, acting in alignment with Washington instructions while blocking genuine diplomatic affairs, including the responsible initiative put forward by China and Russia. Furthermore, they acted in a bad faith by ignoring Iran's constructive cooperation with IAEA, deliberately omitting key facts, and tabling another politically motivated resolution at the IAEA Board of Governors in November 2025, while pressuring members to support it. This was done to manufacture a crisis rather than resolve one, and it effectively ended both diplomacy and the Cairo Agreement. Third, regarding claims that the so-called snapback or reinstatement of termination sanctions resolution has been triggered, Iran's position is clear, consistent, and firmly on the record, including in its official communication to the Secretary General and the President of the Council. This position has also been explicitly shared by other members, including China and Russia. The E3 have been in sustained and publicly acknowledged significant non-performance since 2018, and therefore lack any legal standing to invoke such a mechanism. Moreover, the Security Council procedural inaction in September neither validate nor remedies this fundamental defect. The Council made no determination that legal conditions for the so-called snapback were met. Under international law, defective or invalid procedures cannot create legal rights or obligations. Let me state once again Iran's position in clearest possible terms. Resolution 2231 terminated definitively on 18 October 2025. As of that date, all nuclear-related provisions, measures, and restrictions were permanently terminated. The Security Council concluded its consideration of the Iranian nuclear issue, and the agenda item non-proliferation was removed. Any attempt by any state or body to revive, reinterpret, or enforce these terminated provisions is null and void, without legal effect, and constitute a clear abuse of this Council authority and processes. Fourth, Iran remains fully committed to principled diplomacy and genuine negotiations. It will never submit to coercion, intimidation, or political pressure. It is now incumbent upon France, the United Kingdom, and the United States to reverse course and take concrete, credible steps to restore trust and confidence. The core principles of the JCPOA remain indisputable and valid. Verifiable assurance that Iran's nuclear program is exclusively peaceful in exchange for full recognition of Iran's right under the NPT, including the right to uranium enrichment, the lifting of all sanctions, and the normalization of Iran's economy and integration into the international trading system. These principles remain entirely applicable and can provide a solid foundation for a new agreement. The essential objective is unchanged. Iran's nuclear program must remain exclusively peaceful, and Iran stands ready to provide such assurances. If France and the United Kingdom are sincere in their declared commitment to diplomacy, they should press the United States to follow this path. If they instead continue to adopt Washington's failed zero enrichment policy and deny Iran in inalienable right under the NPT, diplomacy will be effectively destroyed. The selective invocation of the UN Charter and the pursuit of the so-called peace zero strength approach only undermine the rule of law, replacing it with the law of the jungle. In closing, Mr. President, I wish to thank the outgoing members of the Council, Algeria, Guyana, and the Republic of Korea, Sierra Leone, and Slovenia, and congratulate them on the successful completion of their two-year term. I would like to commend in particular Algeria and Guyana for their principled and independent conduct throughout their tenure. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the Islamic Republic Iran for the statements and also for the nice words addressed to the outgoing members of the Council. The representative of the United States has asked for the floor to make further statement. Please.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. There's a couple things that I wanted to address in the statements from the Iranian representative just now, especially firstly as it relates to 2231 and if it is still active. The resolution did not expire with the conclusion of the snapback process nor the original termination day of October 18th. Our focus, however, the United States of America focus, is on the more relevant and comprehensive restrictions that need to be reinstated.